conquer and we're going to take some. Is that understood? Yes, sir. That's what we're going to do, sweetheart. We are going to go and get some. All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! What are you? What are you?
The support systems of family and community are an integral part of the holidays for those that are caring for loved ones with special needs. Through the love and diligence of his family, Jeremiah Feliciano was able to live a healthy and productive life despite his rare genetic disease. Read his story and much more in EP's annual Family and Community issue. To read more, sign up for free today at www.epmagazine.com.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel, a knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, 2 Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. 2 Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, 2 lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
I remember a time when I was in a not so good place, and these games and these activities and being able to come and have the camaraderie that we have here, it makes me feel like I'm not alone. There are people here that have been through what I've been through. It makes me feel like I don't know, I'm part of something great.
Just let yourself go. Give it a try.
Hello and welcome to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis, Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubuzoo Network. You can find out more on hubuzoo.com. This year's off to a fast, hot start, even though it's like the frozen tundra here in New England. And I'm rolling with a different look tonight because I have a fellow military broadcast radio host on with me tonight. H-Train Joel, are you watching? We are doing this NBR style because I have the host of the Tracer Rounds podcast, Terri Lynch. Welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me to be on your show tonight.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And it's just great to, talk with and collaborate with another military broadcast radio host. Joel Hunt is an Army veteran and created Military Broadcast Radio. I've been on that network, like I do Reach Across America Radio Network and a couple others. And it's just really positive, the environment he created. And Tracy's been doing a show for, not Tracy, Terri, excuse me, has been doing a show for a while. And we're going to find out all about her. How did you get involved with veterans advocacy? Are you a veteran yourself, Terri?
I'm an Army Reserve veteran and I have 33 and a half years of service.
33 and a half years of service?
Yes.
Now, Terri, the average marriage in America is about 6.5, 7.2 years.
Yeah.
So you have been married long to the military,
Yes.
longer than most people have been alive now. Where did that level of commitment come from?
Okay, I'll do my term, I'll do my contract, and then I'm out. I don't need it anymore. And then you're like, well, you come up on 6 years and you're like, well, I can do 6 more. It's not a big deal. Like that's not that much. And then when you get 12 and you're like, well, I only got 8 more and I can get 20. It's like, I might as well stay. Like then it's retirement. So, you stay a little longer and then you go, this ain't so bad. I could stay a little bit longer. And then they make you indefinite and there's no more contracts. So then you just like, okay, so I'm here. So you just ended up staying and you're like, we're having fun until we're not, then we'll do something else.
33 years. Which branch of the reserves are you in, and what do you do in the reserves?
So I'm in the Army Reserve and I've been in 3 different units. The first one was a civil affairs unit out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. It was a 486 CABN. And then I was assigned to, it's really the 76 ORC, the Operational Readiness Command, but it really was part of 5th Army North, and it was Homeland Defense. Really, it's the only reserve unit that actually does work on Homeland soil, because most reserves are all foreign defense, and this was the only job that was home soil, and it was responding to disasters, hurricanes, ice storms, floods, fires, anything that would affect the FEMA region that the unit's in. So we were part of FEMA Region 6. Anytime FEMA Region 6 stood up, we stood up. We went to the disaster. We ordered in military assets, whatever the state governor wanted. We would order in those assets, and then we'd the connectivity between those military assets and the governments of the area, so the town or the governors or whoever was in play. And then the last unit that I'm going to retire from is a Southern Command in Miami.
Oh, so you're all over the U.S. You're truly Oscar Mike everywhere.
Yeah, well, we've with a 486, I went across the U.S. doing SRPs, Soldier Readiness Preparedness. So getting everybody ready to deploy, going and making sure their records are up to date, shots, all that stuff. And then met them at Green Ramp in what used to be Fort Bragg before they hit Green Ramp to go overseas.
So you're the ones who keep the shot records like in line?
Well, no, I'm not medical. So I was part of just the team that would look at everybody's shots and decide whether or not they needed them, because I was part of the S1 group, the admin group that had to keep charge of all the records and everything to make sure people were where they needed to be and their records were up to date, and all their forms signed and next of kin documents together, that kind of thing.
Man, if I had known that, I would have tried to hack the system so I wouldn't get shots. I hate shots, Terri. No wonder I got shots all the time. People like you. Unreal.
Could have been.
So you're still doing reserve time, a week in a
Yes.
month, 2 weeks a year. You for 33 years, so you've seen the military, even on the reserve side, change dramatically over 3 decades. I mean, what was it like when you joined versus what you're seeing now?
When I joined, we were using onion skins for drill and for, and we were using typewriters and we were using triplicate forms. So
Wow.
yeah, it's changed quite a bit because we are using computers now, and and during COVID, I actually was remote drilling at home. Who would have thought I would be working at home doing drills, from my back porch? I mean, I would have never thought that in a million years.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's all the equipment's changed, all the uniforms. I think we've had three different Army uniforms since I've been in. We had the greens when I started, and then we went to blues, and now we're going back to what they don't want you to call pinks and greens. We're going back to that old World War II uniform, and they don't want you to call it that, so don't call it that, but that's kind of what it is. But I like that vintage look of the Army anyway. I think it really lends itself to the history of our service, and just feels more like the Army esprit de corps type uniform than the other ones, in my opinion.
Okay. And you must still like some aspect of it because you've been in it longer than most people have been alive. What is the glue that keeps you coming back? It can't be the the great uniforms, the uniforms changing all the time, or the PT belts. I've always wondered about that, Terry. Like we're gonna give you a device that makes you stick out and have you go run with it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I'm just saying. But anyway, what is it about the Army Reserve that you just love more than anything else?
I'd say it's the people,
Yeah,
and then it's also that you get to serve your country. Not everybody can, some want to get in and they can't because medical or some other type of thing that would not allow them to join. And so really and truthfully, I'm blessed to be in the service, because not everybody can serve their country in such a way, and for me, it's all about God honor country, just like they say. I mean, truly it is, but I really stay in it for the people because I really care about the people and I care about the mission and I care about what I do. And to me, I think service is everything. And if you're not going to be of service to anybody, how are you affecting change, or how are you impacting people if you're not part of that change and part of that um, group of people that really cares about, what the future looks like for our kids and for our grandkids going forward.
that's awesome. Speaking of kids, I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but are you a mom or grandmom?
Yes, I have 9 kids.
Nine. You're a mother of nine.
Well, so I have 5 sons. I have a grandson that I adopted, and then I have 3 bonus kids.
Just while we're talking personally here, I am the eldest of nine, so I understand what big families is all about.
Yep.
Yes, very
So
nice.
Christmas is expensive, in other words.
Christmas is expensive. The grocery bills are expensive. Everything
Have
is expensive. So you're resourceful too, then I bet.
to be, yeah.
Yeah.
I had to be, but no, all of them are grown, but the grandson I adopted, so he's still at home. But all the rest of them are out doing their thing.
Did any of them follow in your footsteps to join the military?
A couple of them tried, and then for whatever reason they weren't able to. But my second youngest one now is getting ready to join the Air Force, so he's looking to enlist and take on the, pick up the flag and run with it. So I'm pretty excited for him.
Well, it's a different thing, right? I get asked all the time, why didn't your sons join the Marine Corps? And I don't know about you, but I really feel it should be like their choice, their
Yes,
decision. I
yes,
you had to have seen it like I saw it, and I didn't serve nearly as long as you did, where you could tell that person went because his dad, his granddad, and uncles, you're gonna
yeah,
go, and they're
yeah.
realizing this is not what they want. They just have a bad experience. I didn't ever
Yeah, I
want that for my
mean,
sons.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I wouldn't want any of my kids or anybody I knew, family, friends, whatever, to join unless it was their idea. I really want them to join because it's for their reasons and for the service they want or the legacy they want to leave for their families. I would never want to impose, what I believe is good for me to be good for them.
Got you. Got you. So you're not that you're idle at all. I mean, you have, this military career. motherhood, grandmotherhood, and then you get into podcasting with the Tracer Rounds podcast. What got you into, we'll start with that. What got you into podcasting before we get into how you met H Train? Or if H Train came first, great, but what made you decide to start a podcast?
So I have thought about wanting to just figure out a way to help people and, just kind of communicate information and just kind of highlight things. And so I was like, man, I'd really love to do podcasting. I was trying to finish up my master's degree and I finished that in July. And I was like, after this, I want to take what I learn and I want to just go share it, or I want to at least help or highlight people that help veterans. I just really have a passion for wanting to help people. So I was like, well, podcast seems like a really good way to do that. And I was like, but how do I start? I have no idea. Like, seems like a pie in the sky idea. And how in the world do you get started and do that? So then I was reading the VA newsletter, which I'm happy to say the VA's really come a long way, and they're really getting more the word out about things and really engaging veterans like never before, in my opinion, because I never got a newsletter before. I never got anything that really kind of prompted me to some of the things that are available to us. And so I read in there from NBR, they were like, you want a podcast? Well, contact us. And I was like, what? I'm like, that's my sign. Like, if there's a sign, that's it. So then I messaged, the email it said to message, and I filled out the form and I did all the things like that. And then I waited. And then I had an interview set up with Joel. And, I didn't know him at the time because I didn't know him beyond NBR. I mean, the whole concept was new to me. So yeah, right. So I messaged, him. We set an appointment, and then I got to the appointment and I was so excited. And then there was nobody in the studio. Nobody in the studio, because it said had an emergency, had to go, sorry. And I was like, oh man, like I was so disappointed. And then Joel ended up calling me a little bit later on. He's like, look, hey, I had an emergency, had to leave the studio, so sorry. I'm like, no, I get it, things happen, no problem. He goes, yeah, well, so what are you wanting to do? So I told him, and he goes, you sound like you'd have a voice be okay for radio. He goes, yeah, I think we could do something, that'd be all right. And I'm like, okay. He goes, I'm going to set you up with this. I'm going to set you up with that. And we're going to get you worked in. I'm like, everything was like flying so fast. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. You just tell me what I'm doing. So then I just kind of hung out in the chat for a while till somebody like took me under their wing and said, okay, look, this is what we do. And, kind of helped me get started. And of course, H, just really, engaged me and said, okay, look, you need this, you need this, you need this. And I'm like, well, how do I do all this stuff? So he would start doing a few things and kind of helping me out. And he goes, now the rest is up to you. And I'm like, oh, darn, like, we're like, figured this thing out. So that's really how it got started.
Well, we're sporting the MBR shirts. I mean, I like the freaking logo, and like it's like we're getting ready for work, which is what we're doing now. Did you come up with the name Tracer Rounds? Was there any significance to that, Terri?
Yeah, we did come up with a name, and the original intro was really long, but it really talked about why I called it that. But the reason it was tracer rounds is because, for one, I love tracers. Like, that is the coolest thing, to fire tracers at night. Like, who doesn't love to fire tracers into the air and start fires? Because
Right.
it's so dry out there that you fire a round off and then, oops, sorry, got to call the fire department because we got to put out the fire. But really, for me, tracers show the path where you need to go, or show where you need to adjust, because you need to either adjust your windage right or left, or your azimuth, whatever, but you need to figure out where you're going so that you know if you're on the right path or not. So if you fire out a tracer, then okay, I'm hitting my target, good to go. So really, for me, it's just something about funneling into a direction, and making sure that we're not right or left of that path, that we're headed straight into the right direction. And I kind of want to lead others that way too, so we're firing off a tracer to all head in the same direction to get people where they need to be. That's really what it's about for me.
Well, that's very, very cool. I never thought of it that way before. And yes, at nighttime, there is nothing like seeing tracers go off. You're 100% correct.
Love it.
What was it like? You meet H Train, you have this idea, and again, your mom, grandma, you're going to school, you're graduating from school, you're in the Army, and you're doing the
Good job.
podcast. Right, right. You're doing it all. You're truly Oscar Mike as an Oscar Mike radio. But what was it like hitting record for the first time and actually doing a track?
Kind of bumpy because I was actually on military duty in Miami, and so I was having to do it by hotel Wi-Fi. And so it was kind of hit and miss, as you might imagine. And so and the computer I had wasn't really, the processor wasn't high enough for it to do a really good job anyway, because it couldn't process fast enough to really keep it from lagging. So it was a little bumpy to get started, and Joel was like, "We've got to do something about your internet is horrible." And I'm like, "I know." And he goes, "It's bad." And I was like, I know, I'm so sorry." And he's like, "We got to figure it out." I'm like, "Okay, I'm trying to work it out." So I was like, "I don't know what the problem is," because I really didn't have any idea that it was my computer. I really didn't know that the processor was too slow. So I went to a friend's house in Miami, and I'm like, "Can I use your internet? Like, can I plug in?" And couldn't figure out how to get me connected. So we did Wi-Fi close enough to her towers to hopefully make the signal a little bit better. And he's like, "Okay, that's a little bit better, but it's still bad." I was like, "I'm so sorry." So we struggled through like 4 weeks of shows, because I was there for about 45 days doing my military duty, because I'm really an IMA, and IMAs do all their drills and all of their duty all at one time. So
What's
everything's
IMA
stacked back
mean?
to back. It's individual mobilization augmentee. And so an IMA typically goes to an active duty unit and covers down for somebody that's either in training or something in an office at a active duty um, post or base, or in this case, it's Southcom. They have a campus. So that's really what it does. And then they kind of morphed my position, or all of us IMAs that were at Southcom, they morphed us into TPUs, but an irregular TPU. So a traditional reservist, but they made us only like drill like 3 times a year instead of like every month and then 2 weeks.
Gotcha, gotcha. You go through the normal. What you're talking about is really like normal podcast growing pains. No matter who you are, you're going to have some bumps the first couple. You stuck with it. Now that you've gotten going, and the Tracer Rounds podcast can be heard on NBR radio, uh, what are you getting into now that you've got some reps and you're getting comfortable doing the process?
So truly in my show, I interview veteran artists, and I interview veterans who have businesses. And then I also interview businesses that support veterans. And then I like to have hosts on too, and to talk about their service. And then I had last week, I had my brother-in-law on, who's a Vietnam veteran Marine. And we talked about his service and about what he saw at Vietnam, and then how, what's going on with him now. And so really, I just want to highlight veterans. I want to get their voice out there, just like Joel's, always says about NBR, giving veterans a voice. That's really all my podcast is about, because people don't want to hear me talk. They want to hear my guests talk. And so really and truthfully, I ask them a question and I tell them, just make sure you expand on anything and everything you want to, because I just want you to really get your message out there. Whatever that message is, I want it to be heard. So really, I just give them one little question, and then I just let them talk after that, just because I want them to expand and keep going, and just let people really know what's on their heart and what's on their mind, or, introduce their product to the community. I just want them to be heard, period.
Well, it's really refreshing. A lot of people forget that step or don't even follow that step, where it's, yes, we're the host. You host the Tracer Rounds podcast, and I'm the host of this show right now. But it really is about the guest and their experience, what they're passing on. So I'm so happy to hear that you really locked into that aspect of podcasting right away. That's nice. Um, you're doing it. And how is it like being part of a group like NBR Radio? Because I ask that because for so many years, When I started podcasting, it was not like it is now, but you have the support group around you, you have this community. What's that like for you in addition to, just doing it on your own?
I could do it on my own if I was just doing it by myself. I really think the support of everybody that's hosting on MBR is really where we're most of us veterans. I mean, I'm not quite out, but I'm getting there, and I'm going to miss that connection to the military and miss that camaraderie that only comes with military service as far as I'm concerned. And so having all these hosts help and then just support you and show up for your shows, and if you need a guest, they're like, hey, put me on. They're always willing to help. They're always willing to go the extra step. When I was in Miami, I met up with MJ, who's another host on the World of Conscious Positive Thinking, and she's like, hey, let me show you around, let me be on my show. I'll have you on and I'll be on yours. And so she really gave me some insight. And then we went to the Military Influencers Conference in Atlanta, and Joey from Money in the Military and Amber from Into the Weeds came to the conference, and we just kind of met up and collaborated. And then all of us kind of just went to our areas of interest, and then we just networked throughout the whole event, finding different people to interview, finding businesses that needed support, and just kind of finding good veteran stories. So we really had a great experience. So all of us just kind of networked, and that's what this whole group of MBR hosts does, is they just network and find resources for all of us. We kind of share in the collaborations. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to get all these people for me and I'm not going to share, or we're all sharing resources and sharing information, which is so important in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's been great having, Krista Leone from the Dog Tag Diva podcast on. I've tried to get H Train on my show, and he's like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I just want to be behind the scenes. But it's really been something to see him work so hard to get the support, financial infrastructure and tools needed to support veterans telling their stories. And it was a really proud moment to see that represented by the VA. The VA profiled him. It was really amazing.
Yes.
And I'm glad you got connected with him. You're doing podcasting now. How long have you been doing podcasting then?
Since May of this year. May was my Memorial Day weekend was my first show.
Well, it's going to get better the more you do it, and to your point, you'll meet other people. You'll be able to, add value, and you're giving people a space to tell their story in an authentic way. We're into 2025 now. You'll be a year old before you know it, and it's really significant, Terri, because a lot of podcasts do not make it past a lot. It's called pod fade. And most podcasts fade or go out of existence between number 18 and number 30. So the fact that you're still here at this time shows a high probability you're going to be doing this for quite a while. So I commend you for that. But where do you want to see the Tracer Rounds podcast go in the future?
I'd like for the whole group to really get out in front of other places that would broadcast our message, like not just be on MBR, and several other hosts, like you, have other avenues where their show goes and really gets out further. There's a further reach than what we have right now currently with MBR. Not that we don't have a good community, we do, but I would like to see it broader and expanded so that all the hosts can get their message out to all these other areas where we're not touching yet, and really give veterans some inclusive community where they can find resources, where they can find, entertainment, where they understand what's going on. Like, they know the deal. They've been there, done that. They got the t-shirt, they got the dog tags to prove it. I really want, because, my brother-in-law, he always talks about, being a Vietnam vet. He doesn't really talk about what happened or anything, but he's kind of lost that connection with most of his most of his peers and whatnot that were in the service with him. But he was really excited to be on the show and kind of really brought back the happy memories. He has some sad ones too, and some ones he doesn't really want to share, but it really brought back that sense of community with him. And I think, several others that we can get into this community would feel the same way. And it really kind of maybe lighten their mood. And like you're always about veteran suicide and about ending suicide, getting people the resources they need and the connections they need. And I really think this is one of the ways that we do that is with a further reach and with getting the message out, because people can find solace in a group like this, and they can find the happiness that they once had and not kind of feel alone and lost.
That's so powerful, and it really is the unifying concept of podcasts. And you really nailed it right there as to why people do this, and it's growing. I'm really like happy that veterans are getting more airtime, so to speak, because when I started there was a couple of us, and now there's a lot of us. But I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right, Terri. The next step is to be in a position to be on a bigger platform somehow,
Yeah.
so we are heard more. Because when you look at Spotify and Apple Podcasts, for example, or any other podcasting service like Blueberry or Podbean, there's no like dedicated military veteran category for our shows. So in my view, we are at an automatic disadvantage. We have to work much harder to get our message out there than other people do. So I think you're onto something there. I think, it's really refreshing in my view that you haven't been doing this a long time, but you're already seeing where we can have more impact if we're just given the space to do that. Um, what's your favorite kind of guest? Do you have a favorite? Do you just like talking to everybody, or do you prefer one style over the other?
So I had a guy on that has a coffee business, and he makes ground coffee. And he was like the most engaging guest ever. Like he was full of energy. It was so positive. He was just so energetic. Like he just really brought energy to the show. And after the show, he's like, I really loved your group. Your group has such great energy. And I think, really energy feeds energy. So really it was his energy that was feeding the rest of us because he was so excited. So I have to say, I really love to interview someone that's really passionate about what they do, whether it's music, whether it's a business, whether it's support of veterans, or just maybe just something in their daily lives they're passionate about. Maybe they don't have any of those things going for them necessarily, but they're just passionate about something in their life that they're doing or that they're a part of. And I think those people are the most interesting because they really engage the audience and bring the energy. I like to interview anybody. It doesn't really matter to me who I'm interviewing. I really just want to hear a story. I really want to hear about them and what makes them tick, or what made them join the military, or how they found the military, what they learned from the military, what they brought out of it, their experience. But I enjoy, connecting with someone that really has like passion and a fire. You can tell, like they get up in the morning and like, let's go. Those are my favorite people.
Nice, nice. So you're an all gas, no brakes kind of gal. You
Yeah.
like to go. All right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a very great point, because you get asked, well, how do you be a good guest? And if you as a guest aren't passionate and not energetic about what you're talking about, people are going to feed off that.
Yeah.
And if you come with like, well, it was great, served in the military, I guess I had a good time, versus, man, I got up and I freaking spit bullets and ate gunpowder.
Right.
It's so you're on it. You're absolutely 100% correct. And it must have been a great conversation.
Yeah, no, it really was. And then after it, he's like, do you know where I can connect in? Do you know where I can find speaking engagements? Do you know where I can do these things? And I'm like, well, yeah, try here, try here, try here. He's like, well, if you hear of anything, let me know. And I'm like, yeah, for sure I will. But I think it's so cool when people really find what works for them and finds their niche and finds their happy place, and then they just want to go after it. And I think there's nothing more exciting than that to me.
Nice, nice. Well, how can people connect with the Tracer Rounds podcast and where you're hosted, please?
So I'm on MBR platform and I'm on Tuesday nights and I'm at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can reach me by my show page or you can reach me by my email. So tracearounds at mbr.us is always a good way. And you can just hit me up and I'm happy to talk with anybody. I've got a guest that's going to be super interesting coming up. And he actually came and found me at the Mike conference. It's the Military Influencers Conference. He came and found me and he's like, I've got a story I just have to tell. And I'm like, okay. Because we're in the elevator. And I was like, how do you look politely say, well, I'm just headed to something else over here. Like you don't want to be mean, but like you're in an elevator. What are you going to do? You can't go anywhere. So you're a captive audience.
Captive.
And he's right. Yeah. So he was like, well, I've got this story. And he goes, here's a brochure. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I just really need to get this story out. And I'm like, all right. So I looked through the literature after the elevator doors opened and I got out and I looked at the literature and I'm like, yeah, he really does have a story. I really have to have him on. And he had just like been trying to find avenues to get his story out because he's really trying to tell somebody else's story. And he wrote a brochure about the first Medal of Honor winner that was African American, and he was there and saw everything, and he wrote the story for this soldier. And I think that is such a wonderful thing to do. Is like he's not trying to tell his story; he wants to tell somebody else's story. He wants to make sure the message gets out there. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is somebody that's so passionate. He's hunting down people to talk to them because he wants to share this story, like he wants it to get out. And it's not for his own self, it's not for his glory or his edification. It really is about this other soldier he's trying to make sure people remember.
You've been in the Army for a quite a while, let's put it like that. You've seen a whole lot. What do you think the soldier in the Army needs to be successful nowadays?
Oh, well, I think our philosophies have changed a lot back from when I started till now, and I think there isn't the same level of I'm not even going to say that. I was going to say I don't think there's the same level of professionalism in the military anymore because when I joined, you had polished boots and you had to iron uniforms and they had to be starched and they had to be just so. And now the uniforms are wash and wear and there's no polishing boots anymore. So, really those activities didn't I mean, they seem mindless and simple to polish boots and to iron uniforms, but they gave you a sense of pride when you did it because when you wore them, that uniform had that nice crease down the pant legs and the arm creases were there, and the uniform would really stand up by itself if you let it because it was so heavy with starch. But the boots, you could almost see yourself in. So you took pride in your appearance and pride in the uniform because you worked on it. Like you put effort into it. So I think the mindset has changed in the military somewhat. Not to say that the uniforms aren't good now, but there's no effort. There's really no level of effort in them anymore. You just put them on and go. And that's good, I guess, because you're not having to spend extra time there and you can focus in other areas, I suppose. But I think we had a boot shining room, and there's a place to iron uniforms, and that was a sense of community too, and brought people together and to collaborate and talk. And I think there's less talking and more phone collaborations than anything. And I think that's probably what the difference is. More people spend more time on their phones than actually talking to people like we used to have to. We were kind of forced to because we were in these little little areas to do these activities.
No, I agree with the whole boot thing, and I'm called the old fuddy duddy, but it was you could tell in a couple of seconds what kind of Marine or soldier that was by how their boots looked.
Yes.
You know, were their boots serviceable? Were they just worn out, or were they kept well, and it said a lot, and it usually wasn't wrong. And it was a source of pride. And now, from what I understand, they pull the boots out of the box, throw them on. They except for major dirt, they're clean in like 30 seconds with some water, and that's it. I'm like, really? I mean, it was a nightly, like 10, 15-minute deal to keep those things edge dressing the whole 9 yards. And
Yes.
yes, camis that don't require, or BDUs, as you Army people say, that don't really require ironing. I'm like, what?
Yeah. 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 Wash and wear. Just put them on and go. And I guess that's good for, from some aspects, that's good because you're not wasting time. Wasting time is relative, but you're not spending time doing that activity. But I think it kind of gave us from that generation of soldier.
Attention to detail.
Yes. Yes, I think so. And so now I think there's less of that. And I think there's more of what's in it for me attitude. And when I was coming up, it's like, what's the greater good? What's in it for the country? What can I do to serve? Because, if you go through what the Army values are and you do all those things, that gives you the sense that it's not just about you and the world doesn't revolve around you. And I think now probably it's more the world revolves around me, kind of philosophy, and not the other way around. So I think to be successful, you just really have to have passion for what you're doing. You have to have passion for the uniform. You have to have passion for the country. You have to have passion for the people you work with, and that if you serve full time, then you have to love those people around you. You don't have to like them, but you have to love them and take care of them. So I think it's just, if you want to be successful, you got to put yourself in the back seat and put the country and the good of others in the front seat. Because if you don't, you're going to be unhappy with what you're doing and not very successful, because really service is others, not self. So I think if you're concentrating on others, then you're going to be successful. If you're concentrating on self, not so much.
Got you. Well, this will release. This is, January 16th, 2025. I'm going to tell you, I can't wait to see when your 1-year anniversary of the Trace Around podcast comes up in May. I'll be watching on Military Broadcast Radio, and knowing Joel like I do, he will be like a proud father seeing their show be successful. So first of all, welcome. Second of all, congrats on staying in this craft that you're developing, and your story and your style. And then, last but not least, all the success to you, post-military career with your family, and now with Trace Around's podcast. Thank you so much, man, for coming on Oscar Mike Radio.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, see, look, anybody can do podcasting. It's all about the story you want to tell and how you want to tell it and doing it. And Terri, I just, I've watched your show. I like what you're doing. I understand the process. You're going through it. You're taking your lumps, but you're doing great. Thank you so much for coming on. And as you say in Oscar Mike Radio, we're mission in flight. Thank you. Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action, and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinista One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.